How has your week been so far? This is your second week, isn't it?
This will be my third week.
Third week? Been going
Yeah.
all right?
It's been going good. And everyone's been so helpful.
Awesome. Cool. All right, well, I'll get straight into it. It shouldn't last too long. But if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to interrupt me and ask.
Yeah.
And I will send you the slides if you want to afterwards as well.
Yeah, perfect.
So we are talking about the Privacy Act today, and we will go over personal information, examples of personal information, the Privacy Act changes, some management practices, and then we'll talk about breaches. So
Okay.
the Privacy Act is all about protecting personal information, and that's why we will talk about that first. So
Okay.
personal information is anything that can be used to identify an individual. It can be information about the person themselves, really obvious, like name, age, contact details.
Yeah.
It can be information about things associated with the person. So I always give this example in Queenstown. It's a really small town, and say there's only one yellow Porsche in the whole of Queenstown, and everyone knows who drives it because it's a small village and everyone knows everyone's business.
Yeah.
So by mentioning the car in a conversation, you're essentially giving out personal information because everyone knows who drives that car.
Yeah.
Examples are, like I said before, a name, an address, identity documentation like passports or driver's license, records of someone's opinion, employment information, health records, financial information, contracts. So all things that we deal with quite often in our job. And all sort of things can contain personal information. It can be notes, emails, recordings, photos, rather in hard copy or electronic form. And the reason we are talking about this today is because the Privacy Act changed a few years ago, so almost 2.5 years ago now. And the key changes were that every company had to appoint a privacy officer. So for our group, our Southern group, I'm the privacy officer. Privacy breaches now need to be notified to me and your manager, Tarl, always, but also potentially to the Commerce Commission if it's deemed really sensitive. Disclosing information overseas must be protected to a similar level to what it is here in New Zealand, and criminal offences now apply. So at the end of the day, it's all about protecting personal information and reporting breaches. But the Act, which I won't go into details today, but if you're so inclined, you can read about it online. But it has 12 principles, which I've listed here. So we only collect the information we need. So in our case, for real estate, you might be asked along the way to go onto the rates website, on Property Smart, on Property Guru, and collect name and address to help your agents prospect. So that's the kind of information we collect. We collect addresses, we collect name, because our business is about selling property. We're not going to start collecting, say, date of birth or the type of car that someone drives or the pets that they own, because that's not the information that we need.
Okay.
We get it from the person concerned if we can. We tell them what we're doing. We take care of the information once we have it. They can see it if they want to and correct it if it's wrong. So that's a pretty big thing as well. Anyone can contact us and ask us to show them what we hold on them. So that's actually never happened before, but if it was to happen and someone calls in, we just need to ensure they're the person they say they are. So we're not disclosing information to a random person.
Yeah.
And it's the same for you. You might be a member of, I don't know, like clothing shops down in the Cargill or your supermarket, or so you have every right to contact them and ask them to say what they hold on you.
Yeah.
We need to make sure the information is accurate before we use it. We get rid of it once we're done with it. We only use it for the purpose we got it for. So again, that sort of goes back to the first point. So we, sorry, we only collect the information we need and we only use it for the purpose we got it for, which is selling and listing real estate. We're not going to use the information to sell them birthday cakes or something that has nothing to do with what we do.
Yeah.
We only disclose it if that's why we got it. We take care when sending information offshore, and we need to be careful with unique identifiers. So driver's license and passport.
Okay.
So handling personal information. So those are suggestions only, but things to think about. Only work on one person's information at a time to reduce the risk of mixing up information. So when you're dealing with multiple agency agreements, for example, or multiple contracts, just make sure you just take it step by step so you don't mix people's details.
Okay.
If you're using email, there's a few things that you can do to prevent any mistakes happening. You can turn off the autocomplete. So you have to write the email address completely every time. It doesn't autocomplete for you. Always check the address again before you push send. You can put a delay on your outbox. That's what I've done. It saved my bum a couple of times. If you're sending files internally, you can send a link to the file rather than an attachment if it has any sensitive information in it. And you can also password protect the file if it's sensitive.
Okay.
So, like I said, this new act came about 2.5 years ago. In that time, I've had to do maybe 10 breaches across the group, and every single one of them was someone sending an email too fast. So sending the sale and purchase agreement or the agency agreement to the wrong person because they didn't check the address again, or they just didn't pay attention and press send. And then once that's done, it's quite a lot of work to go through the breach because we have to contact every person involved. We have to fill out a breach form. So it does pay to maybe put those things in place.
Yeah, definitely the delay on my outbox, I think.
Oh, that's such a good idea. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I think that is something
And
I should definitely do.
And it's only 30 seconds, but 30 seconds is actually a long time. And most often, you realize what you've done as soon as you've pressed send.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of time to go back to outbox and change. And then if you're working with paper, always keep a clear desk. And if you're sending things away, always double check the pages before you put them in an envelope so there's nothing stuck in there that shouldn't be. open homes, personal information should be recorded on a separate page for each visitor. So that's more so for salespeople, but you will be shown at some point, I'm sure, your open home register for your office, and you'll notice that it's 1 page per visitor. So it means that when salespeople have their open homes, visitors can't see the information from the previous person that just attended.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was sort of a table and everyone would write their name on a single sheet of paper, so you could easily see everyone's, full name and address and phone number and email.
Yeah.
Which is now a privacy breach. The privacy notice must be recorded on each page, which it is, and the hard copies should be scanned and shredded once entered into Property Suite. And special care taken with any hard copy, so not to be left face up on the desk. And again, that's something, even though you don't do open homes, but if you notice in your office, agents leaving their stuff everywhere or face up on the printer, to just remind them that they need to keep that stuff confidential.
Yeah.
Salesperson databases. So contact details can only be added if the information has been collected for this purpose. So again, we're going back to one of the principles where we only add the information if that's what we collected it for, which is to list and sell property. And if the data is collected from prospecting, we must obtain the client's consent to add it to the database. So back in the days before this change in the Privacy Act, agents could go on the Rates website or on Property Smart or Property Guru and collect personal information for prospecting. And then they would just put this information on Property Suite and then send newsletters from Property Suites or mail outs. So we can't do that anymore. We are allowed to prospect and we are allowed to collect information from the Rates website, Property Smart, and so forth, because that is public information. But what we do with that information is put on an Excel spreadsheet and then use that Excel spreadsheet to do mail outs. And if we do get an engagement back from the client, which here means the client's consent. So if someone emails or phones the office or the agent saying, oh, I've received your DLE cards in my mailbox, or received your mail out, I'd like to hear more, or can you do an appraisal on my property, or can you please add me to your newsletter? That's them giving us consent, and only at this stage can we enter the details into Property Suite.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Email to the database will always include an unsubscribe option. So anyone at any given time also has the option to come off the mail out.
Okay.
Social media, that's sort of the same concept where personal information can only be collected when there's a direct engagement on the platform. So a comment on a post or a direct message. And only at this stage can we take the personal information and add it to Property Suite and our database.
Okay.
AML, I'm not going to go into detail about AML because Janine is coming next week to your office to do some training, and she will sit down with you and Emma to do your AML induction. But it's, again, all about collecting personal information, which we have a third party collecting agency called First AML who does that for us. But on the odd case of an agent, I don't know, giving you a passport or utility bill to photocopy and upload, for example, because it still happens from time to time, it's just a matter of making sure it's uploaded where it needs to be uploaded on Property Suite. It's sent to Janine as the compliance officer. And once it has been sent to whoever needs it, it's deleted off all your devices. But Janine will give you a lot more information about this next week.
Cool.
So a breach, what's a breach? A breach is when personal information is accidentally, unlawfully destroyed, lost, altered, provided access to, or disclosed without authorization. Or it can be an action that prevents the agency from accessing the information. So say if we were hacked. So privacy breach can happen in several ways. It can be an employee accessing or disclosing personal information outside their authorization. It can be personal information given to the wrong person by sending it to the wrong physical email address. It can be releasing information to a person who's pretending to be someone else. Or it can be databases or personal information being hacked or illegally accessed by someone outside of the organization. So when a breach occurs, the first thing that you want to do, so if it happens to you and say you send an email to the wrong person and it has personal information, first thing you want to do is try to recover the information as soon as possible. So email that person again, or if you have their phone number, call them and tell them you've made a mistake, apologize, ask them to delete that email.
Okay.
And then notify your manager, so Tarl and myself.
Okay.
So even if the breach was caused accidentally, it's always better to tell someone who can help.
Okay.
And to be fair, like I should really take that line away because it's always caused accidentally. I'm still to meet someone who's done it on purpose.
Yeah.
And then I will evaluate the level of harm that's been caused and notify the appropriate party. So at this stage, ask you if the mistake's been made, or we might ask the agent, if you were doing it on behalf of the agent, to contact all parties and tell them what has happened, so everyone is aware, and all breaches must be reported. And if you're notified of a breach, so if someone contacts you to say they have received someone else's information, stay calm, find out what information they have, how they got it, ask them to return or destroy the information, apologize, thank them for reporting it, make a note of the conversation and the actions you've taken, and then tell your manager and the privacy officer. And remember, sincere apology is free and is often the most important thing in any breach response. So like I mentioned before, those 10 breaches that I've had to deal with, every time we've contacted the parties, no one's got upset. Everyone's like, oh, okay, thank you for letting me know. And I think they see that you're taking it seriously, and they're okay with it. I think it's when they don't know and say something happens along the line because of the breach and they haven't been made aware, that's when really the problem will be. But
Yeah.
if we're honest and apologetic, it's never been an issue. So resources, so the external privacy policy is found on the Bailey's website, just so you know. So that's for anyone outside of Bailey's. The internal privacy policy and the digital policy are saved in our SharePoint, and I've sent you a copy as well, I think, with your contract when you before you started.
Yeah.
And then on SharePoint, there's also the incident report form and the Open Home register template, which the agents used. And if you wanted to do more on this topic, there's training module on B Campus as well. I'm not sure have you been shown B Campus yet?
Yeah, and Karen did show me B Campus.
Yeah, so there is a training module on B Campus. So that's about it. Do you have any questions?
No, I think that's all pretty good. And I think I'll definitely do the delay on my email address as well.
Yes, that's a really good idea. I know a lot of people do it now in our office, and it's just, and even not only for personal information stuff, but just emails in general. You know, when you forgot to put an attachment in, and you realize it as soon as you press send, you're like, oh shoot. So it's I find it really helpful anyway.
Yeah.
No, that's great, Olivia. Thanks for doing this. And if you have any more questions about this along the line, don't hesitate to reach out as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
No worries. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.